Nobody stopping my shine. They try to break me, try to take me out, but I got Jesus on my side.
Hello, everyone. This is your host, Maria Duenas with the Entrepreneur Soiree. And today we are super excited to have my beautiful friend, Raina Carrillo. That's right, Reina. She is a community leader and is also a mayoral candidate for the city of Inglewood. And we are super excited to have you here today, Raina. So welcome to the show this morning. We are super excited to hear your story and your journey as to how you are now, running for mayor for the city of Inglewood. I am super excited for you to share with all of our viewers. So why don't we start off by telling us a little bit more about you, Raina, because we all know that it's very important for the people that are going to vote for you in these upcoming elections. They need to connect with you. They need to feel that, whoever's going to represent them, they can identify with each other. So why don't you start off there? Tell us, who is Raina Carrillo?
Well, Raina Carrillo is definitely a warrior, born and raised in Inglewood, California. I've been doing gang intervention since 1999, and it's been more than 20 years, so now I'm considered a community leader.
Nice.
And I've been helping people. That is my passion, helping others. It fulfills me in so many ways. And so now I can say, I believe 4 years ago, I decided to start my own nonprofit. My mom pushed me to start my own nonprofit so I can give back to my community in Inglewood. And my nonprofit is called the Phoenix Rising Coalition. I chose it because, I feel always that I was that Phoenix rising from the dust,
Got it.
Right. And I think most of us in our urban communities, we're definitely that Phoenix. Some of us had to deal with a lot of stuff in our communities. And then, somehow, some way, here we are,
like
10,
you're
20
trying to survive,
later.
right? Like you got to use your survival skills, whatever life throws at you. I get it. I completely understand.
Yes. So that's, like a short kind of thing about myself. The reason why I'm running for office is because obviously I have a passion for my community. A lot of people says, like, why are you doing this? And then I tell them, I said, I am Inglewood. Being born and raised in Inglewood, going to to elementary school in Inglewood, junior high, and graduating from Morningside High School, and experiencing, back then it was a place called Project Hope. When you got in trouble, you had to attend that school.
You're like, I know exactly how all of you feel out there. Yes. I get it. You're like, I can relate because I was once there. But that's what people need, because we don't need leaders that cannot relate to us, because otherwise you're never going to understand what the real root of the problem is.
Yes, of course. And in talking about the root of the problem, I was a part of the root of the problem.
You were like 90s. The problem.
Yes, So a lot of people are like,
I heard part of your story. Yes.
And I've been like, Google Chola.
Google Chola, and then you see Raina's face, like, hey.
Yeah, and that's the truth, because people have showed me they Google Chola and they're like screenshot and they send it to me. They're like, Raina, is this you? And I'm like, yes. Like, yes, it's me. This is who I was in the past. So I feel like I am more down to earth as I've been there and done that. I've changed my life. It took a lot of trials and tribulations to change that mentality from back then in the 90s to where I'm at now. You just don't go from Chola to gang interventions
to a normal person, right? Like,
yes.
You don't hear that. You don't hear that at all.
So I want to let people know that, yes, I am a different type of mayor candidate, but I'm perfect for the city of Inglewood because, city of Inglewood is an urban community. It's predominantly, Latinos and African Americans. And yes, they're talking about the changes in Inglewood, as they're calling the new Inglewood. They're calling it the new Inglewood because, the gentrification is happening.
Of course.
And so I tell people, like, I've seen it happen with my own eyes in Echo Park. I used to do gang intervention in Echo Park, and I seen the displacement, and I seen the change. And now when you go to Echo Park, it's nothing like it was in the 90s, the 80s, or the early 2000s. And so for me in Inglewood is a culture, Inglewood is a culture of, like, when you think about Inglewood, you think about lowriders,
Yes.
When you think about Inglewood, you think about the Great Western Forum.
Yes.
When you think about Inglewood, you think about, the soul food there. You think about those tacos,
yes.
So, it's a culture. And I just want my community to know that we can embrace other races in our city, but at the same time, those individuals that are coming into our communities need to understand that, we've been here, and we want to get along with each other. We want to have a common ground. And so the common ground could be food, it could be music, it could be art, and I just feel like for me, even though I'm Mexican American with Creole roots, I'm actually multicultural. When I did my ancestry.com, I knew I was mixed white in my background. I know I was mixed black. I know I was mixed
a little bit of everything. Yes.
Yeah. I knew I was mixed with these things. And, but, like I said, I identify as a Mexican American because my father's Mexican from Zacatecas. My mom is half Mexican through her father. And then her mother is Creole, from Louisiana. And so, I identify as both cultures, but I feel more Mexican than anything,
Yes.
And growing up with, with family that are black, white, brown, even
everything
Asian,
in between.
Yeah, it's like you learn to about diversity, about culture, about respect, boundaries, love,
Yes.
And I think in our community, a lot of people are scared of getting a Karen, and we all know what a Karen is,
Yes.
So like in Inglewood, you throw a party till 2, 3 in the morning. Nobody called the cops. Nobody's tripping, right?
And then you got Raina, who's going to implement, the new curfew at 9.
And so, we don't want people coming into our community, which is an urban community in Inglewood, and stop certain things that we've had privileges, all this time. If I, as a woman of color, move to a suburbs, I cannot throw a party until 2 in the morning unless my neighbors are invited inside of the party.
Of course, and everyone's in agreement to it.
Yes. But most of the time, in that sense, people will cut off the music early after 10, around 11 at night, because in those communities it's a different type of culture, a different kind of thing.
And because they're newer too, so they don't have to have that, late of a curfew, because it's something that's starting, so they can start fresh and say, we're just going to do it, 10 o'clock, and then that's it. We don't have to worry. Like, well, before it used to be this. No, this is what it is. But I get it.
So it's different, but if we can all just, get along and be in unity.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Perfect. That would be amazing.
That would be
Raina.
perfect.
Yes, Raina. And so that is totally awesome. Now, I want you to share with us, when people say, Raina, is this you? Right? And they bring up the Chola picture. Like, do you feel that's going to somehow, how is that going to play for you, benefit you or affect you in a way? Because they're going to be like, well, even though you and I know that's no longer who you are, because
of course.
But this is like the girl that's going to be running our city. Has that ever crossed your mind? Have you felt that affecting you in a good way, in a bad way? I mean, because it doesn't have to be negative.
You know what? It's Inglewood. And Inglewood is not the suburbs. I think if I was running for mayor of Beverly Hills, they might be scared, right? Because that's not normal. That's not normal. But we're talking about Inglewood.
Not running our city. Yes.
Yeah. We're talking about Inglewood. So I think for me personally, my past is, I'm not embarrassed of my past.
Of course.
I've never been embarrassed of my past. Am I proud of my past? Not really.
Not necessarily. Yes.
But I wouldn't be the woman I am today if I did not experience that past.
Absolutely.
So for me, I have always, been open about it, because I started as a gang interventionist, an activist, a community leader. So, my story has been told after the fact of making the change. And I've came out in Latina magazine. You know, I was on the cover of Scholastic magazine. I came out in New York Times, LA Times documentary.
I love it. I love it.
So my story is my story. Now, if somebody wants to take my story and demonize it, you know what I mean? To get the voters to stray away from me, to show fear and controversy, then of course they can use that to manipulate people's minds.
Of course.
But the people that truly know me and my heart and who I am, you know, I am a woman of God. I go to church, you know, every Sunday, you know, and I'm a mother of 5. So yes, that was Raina in the 90s. Yes. And I'm not embarrassed of that. That's who I was. But who I am now is a mother of 5, you know, and I'm married, and you know, shoot, I mean that transition of getting married. I got married at St. John's church, Catholic church in Inglewood, the only Catholic church in Inglewood, and I remember that was the first chapter of change in my life, because I was no longer Raina Carrillo, the single lady, right?
Of course.
I became a wife. And when you get married in union with the Lord and you become a wife, that chapter in your life changes. And then when you become a mother, that's
a whole different story.
Oh my gosh, yes, you grow up. Because now it's not about you. Because even when you get married, you're married, but
you're still trying to figure it out.
Like you're going to work, your husband's going to work. You guys hang out. It's all about me time, and then you do separate things, and then you can pick up and leave as you please. But when you have kids, you cannot pick up as you please. You can't, and you have a whole responsibility. And God is so amazing, but also a funny jokester, because my first twins. My first babies were twins, and that was overwhelming.
I can imagine.
Then next thing you know, Gigi came. She was my only single birth, and then God blessed me with another set of twins.
Set of twins.
Yeah, so they're all under 12, and they're 5, and it's overwhelming. But
and they still need their mom. Yes, and I mean, just like, you've interviewed me, you've heard my story. I have 2 kids. How do you even do it with 5, Raina? Like, seriously, like, I don't even know.
My faith in God, it's the faith. It's the faith that keeps me going, because some of my friends tell me, Raina, you're married, which is like having an extra kid. You have 5
we can all agree with that, right? Yes.
You work, and you're an entrepreneur spirited. So you do life insurance, you have your nonprofit.
That's right.
And now you're running for mayor. Like, how do you do it?
You don't have enough going on. Yeah. Like, you have, how many hours are in your day, Raina? Because mine only 24, but yours seem to have more. But no, it's absolutely true. But it's just really identifying, I guess, like what your purpose in this life truly is. And yes, you're a mom, you're a wife, that's part of, your life and who you are, but that's not everything. Like, you are truly passionate. Like, when I see you and when I first met you and I got to know you, I could tell that this is your passion. Like, yes, that's, you have your mom, your children, your husband, and everything. But Raina, when Raina is by herself and she's out there in the world, this is who you are. You want to stand up for the people that don't have a voice.
Yes.
And I think that is your passion.
Yes, I want, like in Inglewood, we have a lot of Latinos, and the percentage is high, but the census don't document it, because Latinos don't vote.
We're always scared, and we're always scared.
Yeah. And they don't register for many reasons, right? Deportation, ICE, stuff like that. But when I was walking in the community in Inglewood by Ash Park, it's closer to the 405 freeway of Inglewood. Inglewood is kind of big.
Okay.
And the Latino community was like, okay, you're running for mayor? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, I said, are you ready to vote? No. And I said, well, why not? And he basically said, like, the Latino voice don't count. It doesn't matter. We don't have a voice. When I heard that man say that, it hurt my heart, because I can think about how Martin Luther King felt for his people, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And just imagine how Cesar Chavez felt about his people.
Yes.
And so when I heard that, I understood why Martin Luther King and Cesar Chavez fought so hard for their people, because it hurt them to know about segregation. It hurt them to know that the undocumented Latinos that were picking the fruit for us to eat
farm, yeah.
were getting mistreated and not paid enough, and they were getting cancer because of the chemicals and whatever that goes with that.
Yes.
So my purpose on earth, I didn't know my purpose fully. That's why I wasn't living the right life. You know what I mean?
Yes.
When you don't have a purpose, you're destructive. You're destructive, and you don't care if you die. I remember in junior high, I created my obituaries in junior high because I knew I was not going to make it to the age of 18. And that's how I felt. I had no purpose.
Yes, that's how you felt, but that was the life you were living. So truth be told,
and it was the reality in Inglewood at the
probabilities of you the probabilities of you surviving in it being in a gang were slim to none, because we all know how that goes.
Yes. And even if you weren't gang banging, we were living in the 90s in Inglewood, and a bullet don't have a name. You know what I mean? Innocent people were being,
killed.
Because of stray bullets and stuff like that. So when you don't have purpose, you like I said, I'm a woman of God. So now I can reflect back and say I didn't have purpose on earth. So I was rolling with the devil. I was rolling with the devil, doing his work. I wasn't doing God's work because I had no purpose. No. And a lot of people don't understand that at-risk youth, they come from dysfunctional homes. And at that time in the 90s, there were no resources out there there were no resources in our community.
At least not for the less privileged, that's for sure.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's for sure, because we lived on the other side of Inglewood, which we used to call it where Morningside is at. We used to call it Inglewatts. We called it Inglewatts because it wasn't the nice side of Inglewood.
Of course.
And so, when you find your purpose, life changed. And I remember at the age of 15, I didn't understand why it came out my mouth, but it did. And I was telling the Mayor Dorn at the time and Chief Ronald Banks, the chief of police of Inglewood. I was 15 years old, and I just remember going to an event, a community event, and I was wowed up because, law enforcement would mistreat at-risk youth and gang members, probation kids, or whatever, anything that identifies that look like a gang member.
Identified you, racial profiling and all of that.
Yes, racial profiling. And so I went there to just listen and hear. And what I heard them talking about, I was just not in agreement with them. So I stood up and I was like, you know what? I'm tired of, law enforcement, abusing their authority. And look, where we at now in 2022, law enforcement is
feels like not much has changed.
Right. Yes. And so, so I was very, like when I was 15, I was like, well, when I get old, I'm going to run for mayor of Inglewood. And I couldn't believe it came out of my mouth. But now that I'm in alignment with God, I knew God had pushed that out my mouth. He was speaking life over me.
If you're going to stand up and have the courage to open a mouth, this is what you're going to say, and that's it.
Yes, and that stuck with me. That mayor stuck with me till this day. And I remember in 97, before graduation, my own homeboy, he tried to kill me. He put a .45 caliber to my head and pulled the trigger three times. And it was a spiritual awakening journey. A lot of people said, did you get shot? I'm like, no, I didn't get shot.
Literally, like,
but what God had me experience spiritually, when I closed my eyes, I thought I had got shot in the head. I fell down a black tunnel. I looked back. I'm like, at the time I was Catholic. So I was like, this is my purgatory or I'm going to hell. And I just started saying my All Fathers and my Hail Marys and asking God to forgive me. And when I looked back, I saw the Virgin Mary hands and her turquoise cloth. And I accepted death, and I was happy to cross over because since I was 6 or 7, I never wanted to be on earth. I used to always say to myself, I want to go back home. I wanted to go back, And so when this happened, I was happy to know that I was going to cross over and be in heaven, because I know the Virgin Mary is Jesus' mom, and I know that she's in heaven. So I was like, I'm going to heaven too.
That's where I'm going.
Yes. And then when I opened my eyes, my homeboy was still pulling the trigger. And this was in front of Morningside in my high school after the squad bus dropped me off. And, you know, my mom was bumping her oldies coming, you know, through, and my friend ran, and my mom saw him running, but she didn't understand what was happening. And so, you know, all of that got revealed when I got home. And the thing is that I could have been dead or in prison, but God spared me. And it was a moment in my life that day where I told God, you know, you're going to lose me, meaning like, you know, retaliation, I'm going to prison, or they're going to come back and retaliate on me. So you need to show yourself spiritually or physically or something. And God showed himself spiritually to me and forever changed my life. And so now I'm on this mission. So I would say I embrace my purpose of running for mayor of Inglewood.
I love it.
Probably like fully embraced it. It was kind of like 5 years ago.
Okay.
But then I went to a life coaching course that kind of like pushed me to not have the fear of failure. Not to have the fear of rejection. So once those fears were gone,
they were removed from you.
Yes, they were removed, and I was able to say, okay, this is it. I'm running for mayor of Inglewood, no matter what. I don't care who's running for office. I'm not focusing on the current mayor. I'm not focusing on my other opponents. I'm focusing on my purpose to run for mayor of Inglewood, because this has been my calling since I was 15. And so nobody and that's running for office cannot, they do not have the same story as me. They don't have my same life. They don't have my past. They don't have my passion. And so
most importantly, not everyone can relate to them. I mean, here you are like a walking testimony. Like you were literally on the other side of the law. You were the one breaking the law.
Yes.
Okay. Then life happens to you, and then you're like, wait a minute, Raina, wake up. Like or it's gonna be over soon for you.
Yes.
And then here you are, and then this is what we all get to see, and we all get to benefit from, because you really do know what the root of the problems are, how you're going to help, you know, the community come together, like you said. And I know when you and I were talking a few months ago, when you were on the other, I was on the other side and you were interviewing me, you kept talking about, like, you know, wanting to have events where you invited the community together. You want the families to get to know each other and just to come and hang out and know that it's okay. And we don't have to worry that, you know, someone's going to drive by and shoot up the place, because if you think about it, that's kind of what's been going on. That's it. I'll share something real quick with you. We went to a local mall out here where we live this past Friday, and we hardly ever go shopping physically anymore, but we went, and we had a couple of things we needed to get, and we went in and out. The following day on the news, active shooter at that mall. I don't understand.
Crazy, right?
I'm just thinking, oh my gosh. And we almost went on Saturday versus Friday just because we had things to do. But just imagine, you know?
I always tell people, the guns don't kill people. The people that have these guns kill people. Them.
Yes.
And for me, truly, I believe, just like how we have to get a driver's license.
Yes.
I truly believe they need to create that line as well for people that are getting guns. You know, I feel to me, an 18-year-old should not own a gun. I believe a 19-year-old should not own a gun. A 20-year-old should not own a gun, because I remember when I was in my 20s, if I owned a gun back then, I would be quick out of anger to pull my gun out.
Exactly.
Because you're not thinking as a wise adult. You're still young. You're still
thinking in the moment. You're upset now. Let me have a solution for this problem now.
Now I'm 43. If I'm driving in a car and a person flicked me off, I'm not going to react to it. You know, I'd be like, God bless you. You know what I mean? I don't react to that kind of stuff because we live in a time right now where people don't have nothing to lose. But I do.
That's the
I
sad part.
To lose.
Yes.
So, I don't entertain that, but I just feel like they need to create not like strict laws to remove guns because, that's our amendment. And I believe that, in my home, I need a gun because, when times get crazy, you need to protect your home, your children, your family. But with the extra stuff, it's like, wow, like the young man, you could tell he had issues, and he looked like God revealed so much about that young man that killed all those kids in elementary school. That was actually very a demonic spirit attached to him. Yes. Because those kids never done anything to that man. And he had a lot of battling with his sexuality on top of that. Like I read him to a T. And so this boy, purchased a gun, woke up, killed his grandmother, and went into an elementary school. And like I said, if it would have been stricter laws for him, like, okay, you can tell something is mentally wrong with him. Why would you? But then I guess I got the gift of discernment. So,
why is he not getting proper help? Like, why is no one paying attention to this? Even like in his workplace, they could have identified, you know what, maybe we do need to refer you to some assistance to get you back on the right path. But sometimes,
because he needed mental help. You can tell in his eyes. Yeah, he slipped through the cracks. And then, of course, when you come from certain Latino background families, our families are tough love. It's like, get over it mentality. So,
and don't cry about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Don't cry. Yeah. And so in this situation, it's just, like, wow, I pray for the family. I pray that young man gets help in prison.
Absolutely.
And I hope that the law enforcement learn from their mistakes and their trial and error, and hope that this never happens again. It was just, like I said, this world is getting worse and worse. And, and I know the truth, spiritually. And so, that's why I say it's important to have our own guns in our own home, because one day it's going to get worse than it is now. And we're going to have to protect our home and our family.
Absolutely.
And, so it's just interesting the world we live in. And I'm just hoping, in my city, that I can, create a public safety for gang intervention, for prevention, intervention, and reentry. Law enforcement do the suppression. I'm focused on prevention, intervention, and reentry. I'm focused on the community and unity. I'm focused more on peace and not war kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like when people say attend an anti-war parade thing, and I'm like, no, I will attend a peace rally before I do anything, in that sense. I don't want to put power into anything negative. I want to put power into something positive.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, Raina. And my other question that I was just like, I want to make sure I ask this before, because we could just be here for hours, Raina. So when you were on the other side of the tracks, right? So where would you say was kind of like the breaking point where you had like a wake up call? Like what incident?
When I almost got shot.
One. That was it.
That was the wake up call.
That was your wake up call. Got it.
If it would have been an enemy, it would have been on and cracking. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But it happened to be a person from my neighborhood, from the same.
You
know what I mean? Like, my friend that tried to kill me.
Your friend. Yes.
But let me tell you how God is good.
Oh, he's great, girl.
I shook his hand. I went to a funeral, and that's how God works. That's how God works.
Say?
God works like that.
I'm sure he did have words for you. What did he say?
We didn't talk about it. He just said that, when I saw him at the viewing, he was proud of me, and, we shook our hands, and that was it. It wasn't time. It wasn't, it wasn't time for
a conversation,
for that discussion, because the conversation happened a few years ago, and that led us into an altercation. So it's kind of like, you know, I forgave him. I move on. We don't have to talk about it. And it goes to show you, like, everybody has a Judas in their life.
Yeah.
And a lot of people says we don't need the Judas, but sometimes you do, because if it wasn't for him in this situation, I would have never changed my life.
Yeah, you would have still been on the other side thinking, hey, I got away, from this incident, from that incident, and I'm still here, like kind of a joke, and you literally took that as a sign and ran with it. So, Raina, I know earlier in the conversation you mentioned that you also do life insurance. So tell us a little bit more about that and how you got started with that.
Yeah, so with life insurance, I was doing gang intervention in the Pico Union area, which we call it Rampart. And I have a story where I was working with a client and the mother got a raise. And she said she wanted to get life insurance for her and her son. Her son just, he was a gang member.
Of course.
And for a family meeting, my friend went to help that family. And so fast forward, a few months later, he was gunned down. And so I forgot about the life insurance because I wasn't there, it was more like I was outside, they were taking care of business, and I was with the client. And so when the mother, I was there at the homicide. They picked up the white cover and it was my client. And I went to the mother's house to tell her son was no longer here. And she kind of felt it. She was drinking coffee. It was 3-something in the morning. She was waiting for her son. And so, I spoke to her, we talked, and then I had to, get back home to rest and get back to work for a team meeting. And so fast forward, the mother receives a check for $250,000, and she was able to bury him, and she was able to pay, I think, $20,000 to get her other son out of prison. And so, the story is that the money cannot bring her child back.
Of course.
But she didn't have $250,000 before this incident, so she was able to take care of her son's funeral arrangement, the best, beautifulest Catholic ceremony I've ever witnessed in my life, without, fundraising. Back then we didn't have a GoFundMe. It was make tamales,
or a car wash,
car wash,
or whatever.
She didn't have to do any of that. And she had money left over. So that money was kind of like, an inheritance, from her son. And she moved far away, purchased her home, and started a business with her son that came out of prison, her husband, and her.
Okay.
And so that story was sad, but you saw the blessings because of that life insurance. And so I met my first Mexican multimillionaire named Guillermo Haro.
Okay.
With World Financial Group, and his mentor in the industry was Ed Milet. He's still in the industry, Ed Milet.
I love Ed Milet.
So, yes, me too. So Ed Milet mentored my mentor, Guillermo Haro. And so I was able to say, okay, I am going to educate the Black and Brown community on the importance of life insurance. We have phone insurance on our phone if it breaks, right?
Of course.
We have car insurance if our car gets in an accident. We have health insurance if something were to happen to us health-wise. But nobody has life insurance.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that it's important for people to understand that our body is our responsibility. It shouldn't take a GoFundMe or for us to beg for money to bury our loved ones.
Yeah.
So it's a cycle that needs to be taught in our communities for the Black and Brown, why it's important,
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Yes, and then for me as a mom, I got life insurance on me because I want to leave a legacy behind.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Do you think about doing like workshops? Because I am huge on education and always thinking like we do have to educate, our community or our clients or for what, I mean, in this case, your community clients.
yeah, yes.
Do you offer like any type of workshops? Because you have to understand that because it's not something natural that, our parents, growing up would say like, oh, let's go and sign you up for life insurance. Or
Mhm.
our old parents probably didn't have life insurance, right?
Yes.
But because you do want to educate the people, is there something that you're contemplating on doing or you already do where people can come and learn and you can actually educate them? Like it's not just because you have to think everyone's probably going to think like, well, I don't have those extra $70 a month, right? Or 60 or a
But
month
they
or whatever.
do, but they
No.
do
I
because
get
they
it.
buy McDonald's, Starbucks, they
I
go
get it.
drinking at the bar.
I get it. I'm just saying, but
Yeah.
that's the mentality that we are up against. Like, I don't
Yeah.
have the extra, but we can find it if we go looking for it. I'm sure we can, if we didn't go to that Starbucks, if we don't go to Starbucks, every other day or whatever, you can come up with the $60, $70 to cover your insurance. And it's important for them to be educated and understand $70 is nothing in comparison to when something does happen and you don't have money in the bank, your family can't afford to bury you, then you're going to be like, why didn't I sign up for it? It was like,
Yeah. Well,
it's a no-brainer.
I educate people the importance of life insurance, and I also work with their budget. Sometimes life insurance agents, they will focus on commission with
I was just going to say
their
that.
money. Like, because a client, when we help a client, it becomes money,
Yes,
becomes money
the
for us.
transaction. Yep.
Yes, the commission.
Yes.
And so for me, I don't work like that. I work in the aspect of let's sit down. What is your budget? And once I know your budget, then I'll tell you, okay, you can get term insurance. Term insurance, you get more for your buck and it's affordable.
Got it.
If you're like me, a middle class woman, I can put $166 away for permanent life insurance with a cash value, right?
Yeah.
And the cash value is very important because, the cash value can grow to a 7.9%. You can't find that in a bank.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so let's say, in real life, my surrender was 10-year surrender. Well, I've had my policy past 10 years. So I have tax-free money I can pull out in an emergency.
I love it.
And right now my cash value is growing at a 7.9%. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I feel like it depends on the person's budget. If a person tells me, Rain, I can put away $200 a month and I got 10 grand in the bank that's not growing because it's not even at a 1% in my savings account. No. Can I take that 10 grand and put it in the cash value to give it money like this? And I'm like, yes, you can. And your $10,000 is growing at a 7.9%. So now it's not stuck being the 10,000 in the bank, with some little change.
with a rollover, right?
You know what I mean? And it's tax free. When you do rollovers, that sounds good, because when you take a 401k and you roll it over to an annuities, you're straight. But if you have a 401k and you pull money out, Uncle Sam wants to tax you on your harvest, not your seed.
Yeah, and then you still have to pay it back.
Yes, And so I try to, just work with people's budget, which is so important. So we have this fascinating, I call it fascinating because it's magical to me. We have a term insurance for 30 years and it's a living benefit. A living benefit means that if you were to have a stroke, a heart attack, die of cancer, or have cancer,
yes.
Diabetic coma,
yes,
that money can be used while you're alive. With most term insurance, you have to die to get it.
I was just going to say that. Yes.
So with the one that I promote, which is the Transamerica LB30 for 30 years, if you get sick before you die, you can use some of that money to help you, And if somebody were to say, you have, stage 4 cancer, you can pull about 70% off of that money. while you're alive, whether you want to travel the world, whether you want to buy all the medications you need, or go on a spiritual journey like Dr. Sebi and go find somebody that can help you heal through fruits and foods and liquids.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know that there's resources out there, because the reality is we usually get sick before we die.
Of course.
So I have the living benefit, the Transamerica LB30 term insurance for 30 years for, I believe, $800,000, and I only pay $70 a month.
I love it.
And then I have my permanent life insurance for $300,000 that I pay $166 a month. So I will always be covered, you know, and the cash value and the policy goes to my family.
Perfect.
You know, so you know, and to me, life insurance is important. You know, if you own a house, getting a trust is important, because you don't want, you know, if, you know, the breadwinner dies, the house go into probate. Most families cannot save that legacy, which is the home that the father or the mother worked hard for.
Yes.
And so that's important to me, you know, to educate our Black and Brown community, and just educate anybody
in general. It doesn't matter.
The workshops, you know, I do, you know, here and there. And I usually, like, for example, Maria, you have a clientele, you know, maybe we can work together and do a Zoom call. Or if you have people that you know that are really close to you and you want to do, you know, a little get together in your backyard, you know, put some tables and chairs, or in your home, I will do an in-person one, because, you know, I'm a community person. So I like to reach people.
And there's a difference between doing it over the computer, which we still get the idea, the message is relayed, but you get to really get to know each person individually and what their true needs are.
Yes,
and then
definitely.
You can sit down and assess everyone individually.
And then our office is in Glendora. So we have every Tuesdays and every Saturdays, Tuesday evening and Saturday morning, where we can invite our guests to give them a tour of our office, because we're not going nowhere.
Of course.
And then do a business presentation with them. And at the end, we sit down with them. So yes, we have that. And I will definitely share that information with you.
I was just going to say, where can
add it to your social media?
Absolutely. Yes. Oh my gosh, Raina, like I said, you and I could sit here for hours. Talk. But you know what, Raina, I am very proud of you right now that I'm actually sitting on the other side and, you know, asking the questions and hearing your story. It's truly inspiring. It really is, because you took that sign when God said, like, your life is about to be over if you don't wake up, and you woke up. You know what I mean? And not very many people can say that, because they're thinking, no one is above me. I'm going to still do what I want. Like, I know what I'm doing, you know? And thank God you did, because you would have missed out on a beautiful life, Raina. You would have missed out on having your children, your husband, your family, a business owner, featured in a lot of, you know, magazines, and just, you would have missed out on changing someone's life. And now you're going to change a community. Now you're
I've changed me.
Yes. So be proud of yourself, Raina. And I can't wait to see you win that campaign. And before we get off, where can our viewers find more information about you and your event?
So real quick, Inglewood residents, you vote for Raina Carrillo on November 8th, 2022. It's almost here.
Yes. And
you can find me for my mayor journey would be at Raina for Inglewood, RAINAFOR Inglewood.
That's right.
Always up to some good. And then you can also find me because I have a podcast.
That's right.
Purpose and Passion.
Yes.
So you can follow me on my IG at Purpose and Passion Show, or you can just find me at www.rainacarrillo.com.
That's awesome. And we got to thank Miss Candace Barr, for connecting both of us. Thank you.
Welcome.
Glutathione is a big word. It's the body's own master antioxidant. It's a scavenger for free radical, bacteria, and viruses. There are no products in the market with the ingredient NASET. NASET increases the production of glutathione that's in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system, elevate sense of well-being, support muscle strength and endurance, cognitive function, and liver support. It helps with increased energy and blood sugar regulation. Get your bottle of GSH Plus from www.salvationnutra.com.